Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome to Proper Madness, formerly Beautifully Broken. My name is Sabby, and I give a unique perspective on mental health by providing tools, guidance, and knowledge on how we can better understand ourselves, as well as our past and present experiences, and in doing so, we can help heal our mental health. I speak with a variety of individuals from around the world as they share their stories from their journey through their mental wellness, so that it encourages others to stand strong and use their voice. Welcome back, everyone, to Beautifully Broken. Today I have CJ, a friend of mine that I have known for...
We actually really didn't even talk back then, so it doesn't really matter.
So we used to work together, oh God, like 7 years ago? I want to say 7 years.
Almost a decade ago.
Yeah. But we didn't really talk, and then we always stayed in touch through Instagram and social media. And I posted if someone wanted to be on my podcast, and CJ volunteered as tribute. So
I did.
Here he is.
Yeah. So my name is CJ Gonzales. I've grown up in Orange County all my life. I've been in the fashion industry for a little bit, probably actually longer than that, almost a decade now. So since I graduated high school and then some through college, and then now I'm with Gucci. So it's been a wild ride, but it's been fun, and that's the world that I've been in for a long time. I'd say probably since I was early 20s. Yeah, I'm 27 now, but yeah, since my early 20s, I kind of felt like I needed I wanted rather like a third person perspective, like opinion on like why I was the way I was, and the habits that I formed as I was growing up, and all these different things, and how my childhood ended up impacting me in a way that was obviously somewhat negative, and I saw some habits that I didn't really like in myself forming. So I always wanted to seek out like therapy. I didn't think I needed like serious help, obviously, but it was something that I just wanted for a long time. So finally I got the courage recently to dive into it, and I found good therapist here in Orange County. His name's Raymond. I thought his name was Ramon. He spells it like Ramon, but he pronounces it Raymond. So I'm like, okay, well, I didn't think that it was going to get off to a great start because I kept calling him Raymond. Anyway, just a little tidbit, but yeah, so he ended up being a really, really cool guy. We kind of connected that way. He's he's a little bit older than me, obviously, but we connected, and been going to him for a little bit now. I think it's been 3 to 4 months. So I'm relatively new to it, but yeah, it's been great.
So was there a certain turning point in your life though, where you were like, okay, I got to go to therapy, or was it just something you decided to just...
like I said, for a while, it was just something that I wanted, but I didn't quite know like what the specifics were as far as like what I wanted to like tackle in myself, like about myself, or what I wanted to even find out, because I was kind of obviously like I had some fear behind like addressing those different things that kind of came up as I was growing up a little bit. So I'm becoming like an actual adult, so you couldn't like obviously keep chalking it up to me being a kid. So through like relationships, you obviously learn a lot about yourself and about how you handle adversity, or even good times as well. So those were kind of the things that made me take a second look at myself, or a hard look at myself overall, and just make sure that I was being a healthy and like a whole person, that wasn't like depending on other people for my happiness, or whatever the case may have been. So
was there anything specific that you really struggled with?
It was kind of a learned behavior from my dad. He was pretty volatile when I grew up around him as a kid. It kind of got progressively better as I got a little bit older, but obviously I went through a lot of different like episodes that I saw, and like either didn't involve me, or even if they did, I've learned obviously more recently now that they had an impact on me, and some positive, some negative, like I said before. But just things around that, around my dad, and because not obviously, but I told you my parents divorced when I was a little kid. I was probably like three or four, but didn't really make that much difference, like as far as the actual divorce itself. But I got limited time with each parent, so I'd kind of see how different each experience was, and there was polar opposite. My mom was very stable, and she held down the fort and made sure I was taken care of, etc. But when I'd go over to my dad's house, he had money and like it was fine. Like it's not like we struggled in that regard, but as far as like different women he had around, or just how he was personally, like I saw just the fear behind what was going on with me, and how I grew up with my worldview, and it was just a lot of fear. It was a lot, like I never felt like I was safe or just okay, or that things were going to be good, you know what I mean? So yeah, that was kind of just the basis of what started.
So with not feeling safe and having that fear all the time, does that contribute to anxiety at all?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, anxiety is obviously the word that gets thrown around too much these days, in my opinion, but
it does.
It's valid. I mean, it doesn't make it any less valid, but at the same time, it's just I don't know. There's so many different components to what anxiety. Like if you really want to unpack what anxiety looks like, I mean, it's just there's a lot that goes into that. So, and that's what I wanted to find out, more about, from Raymond, or any of these other folks that I've talked to, about this topic. So it's been interesting, and it's been eye-opening to say the least, just to know what's going on, and how that brought on by like my situation, like I talked about. So yeah, it was pretty alarming.
How do you deal with your anxiety now? Do you have like any outlets? Because everyone's experience with anxiety is very different.
I mean, I would say it actually did manifest like physically a lot of the times, and that's what kind of brought me to a turning point. And I guess this is a better answer to what you asked me earlier, but I mean, I had a few episodes where I was just like I was literally, like I came home one night from like just a little dinner with some friends of mine, and I didn't even think I drank alcohol. I don't think I was 21 yet, actually, but I came home, I was sitting on the couch, just watching TV or whatever the case, and I had like physical symptoms, like my ears, like I don't know, it sounds super odd, but like my hearing went out for like a few seconds. So I got up, because obviously that's not normal, and then I started like thinking I was gonna have a heart attack or like a stroke. I was like, what the fuck is going on? So yeah, I was like, what is going on here? So I started freaking out, overthinking what was happening in the moment, which is, I was known for that. My mom was like, okay, you're probably good, because she's seen that in me before, but it was never to that extent. So I was like, no, I need to go to the hospital. Like, there's some shit going on. Yeah, so like I was full blown. I was like hypochondriac, tendencies, because I was like so, back to the fear. Like I always thought for some reason in the back of my head that something was gonna happen to me, or someone that I care about, that I love. So, anxiety 101 right there. That, and I had a few more after that were kind of similar to that, and I kind of couldn't shake it for like, a good 2 to 3 month period, to where I kind of had, different episodes like that. And I'd end up in the emergency room, and of course they'd tell me like, you're fine.
Yeah.
Like, and I'd obviously calm down, like once I, believed that I was safe and, everything was good, but just like, dude, I can't live my life like this. You know what I mean? So
how do you deal with your anxiety now? Like, do you have anything that you...
Yeah, I mean, it'll still manifest physically in those or in that sense, but I'll literally start like shaking, which is, I don't even know what to call that. I mean, you're just shaking. If I can't calm down, but back to like outlets. I mean, I work out now like consistently more than I have before. So that's obviously just an important part of health anyway. So that's really helped me. CBD has done a great job as well. And I mean, I've never smoked any weed or anything like that. Or I mean, the most I ever did as far as like any type of drug was concerned was just drink alcohol. Because even that though is kind of interesting. I was like even telling my therapist too, like at a few points, like drinking alcohol would bring me to this point that I was able to actually be present. So like in the past, like I was never able to be present. I was always thinking about what happened in the past, how I could fix it, or what was going to happen in the future, and how I could, make it right, or make sure that things, obviously go well, or whatever the case may be. So I kind of liked, not that it like drove me to drink a bunch or anything, but I kind of just, I noticed that and I liked the effect that it had on me. So I knew I had to find a way to get to that point without obviously abusing, any drugs or alcohol or anything like that. So luckily it never got to that point, but I do like that. I mean, CBD, like I said, and then eating healthy has just been a huge component too. I mean, I started doing that right after those episodes that I was mentioning earlier. And it's, taken me on a long-winded journey to figure out what, works for me, and, what foods kind of trigger. Because food, itself can trigger anxiety too, I've found out. So it's kind of eye-opening in that regard too.
Yeah, I think we talked about that too. I told you, when I started getting loose with my diet, my anxiety came back.
Yeah, 100%.
And I couldn't sleep well. I couldn't think properly. I was overthinking everything. More than I do currently, but like it was just a lot more intense. And then the second I just cut out like sugar, alcohol, dairy, just like certain things.
All the obvious ones.
Yeah, all the really obvious ones.
Yeah.
Then it was gone. My sleep improved. My stress was down. But you have your own company, right? That you use that for. Do you see clients that struggle with anxiety or depression and the link with their diet?
Yeah, somewhat. At least so far. I'm not a doctor, obviously. But even with, hiring a few people that are professionals in, their own areas of work, it's been night and day to see like how they've been able to do a 180, like in regards to their, not only their mental and their physical health, but even just holistically their spiritual health, and everything that comes with that, and just practicing better habits as far as just all the basics that most people ignore, like sleep and nutrition and all those different things. So like you said, it has a definite impact on their ability to keep it going, be consistent, all those different things, just overall. So, and that's what we're after with that, with the business that I started with that. So it's been really good to see. But
okay, so going back to therapy, how has that been? Is that when you first started going to therapy, were you like, this is weird?
Yeah, I felt kind of weird, but
why? What was weird?
I don't know. Just obviously it has had I knew logically to think that there's a stigma, especially we're 2021 now, to think that there's a negative aspect of seeking out different outlets and help in this day and age is obviously foolish, because a lot of people are going through a lot of different things nowadays, and the world is crazy. So I knew it made sense to not think that way, but I still in the back of my head you'd have that negative programming to where you're what the fuck is wrong with me? Why am I here? You know what I mean? So it was kind of odd at first, but I kind of just made myself push through that, and it was good after that. He just kind of made me, or allowed me to open up about whatever it was, at least that week, or lately that was going on with me, and that he can point out different things and kind of walk with me, because that's what he kind of explained therapy is. It's not psychiatry, but therapy is a little bit different, at least in that regard, to where they're kind of walking with you and just pointing out different things along the way.
Yeah.
So it's it kind of made me feel more at ease in that regard. So
as a guy, going to therapy and talking about mental health, has that been difficult for you?
That's a good question, actually. Yeah, because being a guy, you're obviously told your whole life to be strong and to always be, very, just on top of your shit, and you can't really let people see you sweat, and all these different ridiculous masculine qualities that you have to live up to. And that my dad played a huge part in that, and so did his dad, because they were macho men. You can't. My dad used to fucking rip me a new one if he ever saw me crying.
Yeah.
As a kid, even as a little kid. So it's fuck, I can't even let my emotions out. So I used to be very sensitive as a kid, even back then. That's why he would see me cry very often, or not very often, but every now and then, and it'd make me feel like shit. But yeah, so it was interesting to kind of do a 180, because because of that, he made me feel so bad about that, and I didn't want to do it anymore. And I was like, I can't let anybody see my emotions, or the depths of what I'm going through at all. So going back, allowing someone in, even my therapist, because I grew up a people pleaser too. I said I don't want him to see me as this broken person or anything along those lines.
Yeah.
So I'm like, bro, this is what he does for a living though. I can't, So I always had those two opposite ideas in my head, to where I couldn't I had to get past these limiting beliefs that I had about myself and how I was going to be viewed. But yeah, because of all of that, it has been, not difficult, but there was kind of a hiccup, a few times, just because I didn't want to even if I did want to fully let him in, I didn't feel comfortable doing that. So it was, very uncomfortable to have those different conversations, or if he'd ask a certain question, I'd feel these tears come up, and I'm just fuck, I can't cry. I just don't cry anymore. I very rarely cry now. So it's I got to allow myself those moments to where if there's something coming up, that's why I'm there. You know what I mean? If he's doing his due diligence and asking me these these really good questions, to where those things are coming back up for me, I gotta pay attention to that. I can't just keep shoving it back down to where I won't even know if they're there anymore. Because that's it's obviously not a good thing. So yeah.
So growing up, would you say that it was really taboo to talk about anything that was going on, period, emotionally? Yeah,
my mom would ask me a few things here and there, but it was never if I was gonna let her in on my whatever, if I had a bad day, it's obviously I was a kid, I didn't really have any life issues at that point, but if I had a bad day, or if something happened to me, I didn't feel I was good enough about that to tell her, and because I hated talking about myself, or asking for or it felt I was asking for sympathy, or all those different things, and it didn't make me feel good. So obviously, looking back, it's really dumb to think that way, but that's just how I thought. So, and then my dad's side, like I said before, it was never talked about, and they just. But as I grew older a little bit, he started asking me, or my dad did start asking me, different questions. We did open up some more dialogue about, some different things like that. And he, would admit at times, at least, that it was so dumb of him to impose that type of, thinking on me. Because he realized over time as well that it was just so ridiculous for, a man to, make his son feel like that. You know what I mean? So, and then same for, my grandfather to my dad, so it's just kind of a generational thing that I didn't want to carry. I don't want to carry on. That's why I'm doing this. Doing the hard work now, so I don't fight. If I do have kids, when I'm a little bit older, that they won't grow up fucked up.
Yeah, no, I think that's smart, because we have to break kind of the generational and cultural norms that were normal back then. Now, otherwise, eventually, when or if you have kids, or I have kids. We don't want them to have the same, stigma growing up.
Right.
But did you find it was a little bit of a cultural thing too? I don't know. I realized that in my culture, it's very much back then, not now. You don't talk about anything. Whatever happens with the family stays with the family. I don't know if you ever did. Yeah.
Yeah. If there was we have a huge family on my dad's side for sure. Technically, we're Mexican. I'm pretty whitewashed myself, but. So yeah, Mexicans, known for having a lot of kids. So there's a lot of us on that side. So if there was some shit going on, no one ever talked about it. You had to hear about it later from somebody else, and it's just fucking ridiculous. So, yeah, to answer your question, it's just
I struggle with that still, with some of my extended family, not my immediate family anymore.
Yeah.
Because now we talk about everything. There's the smallest problem ever at all, it's confronted within seconds, and you can't escape it.
Right.
Whereas with the my more extended family, there's just going to be a white elephant in the room, just because they don't go to therapy, they don't do the work, and they don't understand the big picture of dealing with your stuff.
Right.
But you're right. what you learned from, your dad and then your dad's dad, of everything kind of being passed down. It's like our parents don't know how to deal with things any other way than how their parents did, and that's just what it is.
Yeah, it's gnarly. Like, they just, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying it's my dad's fault or your family's fault. It's not really their fault. It's just...
Exactly.
They just weren't self-aware enough to...
Yeah, and I think that's like the mistake that a lot of people don't understand is sometimes, there's like exceptions to the rule. Most of the time, it's just like no parent's given a handbook. They don't know what to do. But if their parents were given certain ways that they dealt with certain scenarios, then in their brain, they're like, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. You make your parents up, like when you're young, you think that they're terrible and you like hate them and you're like, oh my God, you ruined my life. And then as you get older and you start like getting to know them, getting to know their stories and where they've come from, what they've been through, then you kind of start to like connect the dots and go, wait.
Yeah. It totally shifts your perspective on who they are as people.
Yeah, and other people.
They're not just
too,
your parents, How long have you been in therapy yourself? I mean, I don't know if you still are now, but...
A little, yeah. Well, my therapist recently was like, Sabby, you don't have to come back unless you need to. And I was like, what? I'm like, I hit that point where I'm like, her name's Karen. She was like, I was like, Karen, I'll see you next week. She goes, no. You don't have to come back until, like, you have to. But I don't know what that means. So I've been in therapy for, I want to say, my whole life, on and off. Yeah. From 13. Literally from 13.
Wow, that's a lot longer than I thought.
Yeah, 13 to now. I'm going to be 30 next month. But when I was 13, it was like, I had depression. Like, when I was young. I was going through puberty or whatever.
13, yeah.
And I was being bullied at school, but by boys, not by girls.
Right. And
then I came home. And my parents were fighting a lot. They didn't get divorced till I was 19. So I had both ends of the spectrum. So I didn't have a safe place. The only safe place for me was my room. I'd like shut the door and like blast my music, and that was how I got away. But I did therapy at 13 to 15, but then I started like abusing actually medication and antidepressants. Because I was like, oh, this temporarily fixed my problem, but it wasn't getting to like the root cause of anything. And then I just start going back to therapy just to get medication. So then that's how I figured out I had like an addiction problem, sort of. But later on, realized it was just a poor coping mechanism. 2 years ago, in 2019, is when I got really intensive with it, and I had to do trauma therapy and all that. So that.
What's the difference between trauma therapy?
Trauma therapy for me was literally confronting every single trauma I had been through and healing myself from those very slowly. I did a lot of group therapy at On-Site, which is the place I went to in Nashville. So I did a lot of group therapy, but also they made us do this thing where like, and I still do it, where I put like a chair, and say someone's triggering me from like my past, maybe it's my dad, maybe it's an ex-boyfriend, I don't know. I'll take a chair and it'll be empty. I'll take a chair, it'll be empty, and I'll start talking to the chair. This sounds crazy. I'll start talking to the chair like it's that person to just let out whatever that is.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of how I heal through some of those past things, confronting your past trauma. Sometimes it wasn't even like a person, it'd be a feeling or a theme. They got really creative with it. So
yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, trauma therapy is a little different. Then I did hypnotherapy, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't think I could be hypnotized. I was like, no.
Everyone thinks they can be.
But I really didn't.
I don't think I can be. No one can fucking
really?
hypnotize me. I'm just kidding. I'm sure they would in like 2 seconds.
No. I'm gonna try one day. Just like start,
Don't start right now.
Get like a pendulum and just. But no, yeah. With hypnotherapy, I had a lot of regressed memories that I didn't remember, that I didn't know that I had. And realizing some of those were very scary, and almost re-traumatized me in a way, but I kind of needed to be in order to confront them. It's a lot more...
Makes me want to do that.
You should. I think you should try it. Yeah. I think anyone should.
Yeah.
Because for, I don't know, like for me, normal therapy, like talking about things all the time, helps to a certain degree. And then it gets to a point where you're like, okay, well, how do I like deal with, how do I?
Well, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now too. I mean, I feel like I don't want to go anymore because it's like there's nothing really for me to like talk about, like to keep talking about. It's kind of the, so I'm like, well, how can I like tackle this for real and like make sure I'm actually good from it so it doesn't keep
happening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like, just don't fucking hypnotize me.
I mean, I know promises. As long as you give consent, which you haven't.
You don't have my consent. On the record right now, I do not have my consent. So if she fucks with me.
But you mentioned to me that you have a tendency to constantly stay busy.
If I feel like I'm not busy enough, then my mind starts to be like, you're fucking lazy and you're not being productive, you're not moving forward in life, you're being too stagnant, etc. So it's like I don't know where that came from. I mean, I guess my I hit her foot, just so anybody who's listening.
The O is what got me. I was like, oh, why?
So yeah, where was I? Or that was the issue. It still is the issue, somewhat. Again, I don't know where that came from. I don't know if that's from my. I mean, I feel like I keep bringing back my dad. But he was always a morning person, early riser. He didn't want me to like sleep in or anything. So I felt like a shithead if I ever did. It's kind of a problem because it's like I don't need to always be proving myself to anybody, obviously, or even to myself about like if I'm doing enough or. Not that I want to stay, keep progressing as much as I can, and that's, it is important to me. I think it's important for anybody, but there are seasons and, moments in time where you need to, let off the gas a little bit and, regroup. So as far as growth for me has always happened taken place the most, like when adversity through like relationships. I mean, even if it's not like romantic or if it was romantic or not, like even if it was with a friend or a girlfriend or whatever the case. But I think I mentioned this to you briefly before, but like seeing my cousin recently like struggle like a lot with like mental health and like severe depression and suicidal thoughts, the whole 9 yards. It's been like really eye-opening again for me to actually see it like firsthand, because like until you do, I feel like you're not as sensitive as you could be to those types of people or situations, because you feel like it's just so beyond you, or like you just never have seen it. So that's been playing a huge part in like why I'm like trying to tune in more about how I'm feeling personally and how I'm relating to him. And even like my best friend too has been going through a lot. He's an alcoholic. He's even my age. He's a young guy, but for him to go through something like that gnarly as a young guy is like you don't really hear about that often. So he's been through a lot of different things, family wise and relationally, and I've always been. I've talked about being a people pleaser. Like I'd always feel like I needed to do whatever it took to make sure he was good, and whether that was money or whether that was my time, just straight effort on my part to just like reach out to him on a consistent basis, make sure he wasn't dead, or because he lived by himself for a while. So yeah, just like gnarly. I'm not gonna go into like episodes that have happened with with those friends of mine that have been through that type of thing, but yeah, it's just like that's kind of just the overall theme that's kept coming up for me in this like season that I've been in for the last few years. And that's what kind of again was another component that made me take the plunge to address what's even if it's not like I've never been through. Like that's another thing too, like when I even got to my therapist, not to keep going, but when I got to him, like I didn't want to, like I kept comparing like my experience in my life, like all these other people that I've known, even that have been close to me, like I said, that have been through like way crazier shit than me. So, like, even though I was a part of it and I seen it wasn't me, so I felt like, I'm like, oh, like, what I've been through is not really that, like, much. It's not really that valid. Yeah. So, like, I just want to talk about it. Like, I mean, if I get, some help, that's cool. Yeah. But, like, I don't really, like, need that much, like, you know what I mean? So, it's kind of like, it was weird, but I'm like, no, like, my shit is valid. And, like, it's subjective, it's not objective. It's not, like... So yeah, it makes me overall, just a lot more sensitive to people and to like all these different things that everyone's going, because everyone's going through some shit all the time, no matter what, how big or small you think it is. So yeah.
So you minimized everything you had been through for a really long time.
Until now, yeah. And he's like, no, like what you just told me happened, like that's trauma. Yeah. Like, and I didn't know that. I always, when I thought of trauma, I thought of like, crazy fucking car accidents or, different things like that, like, or like gnarly, like singular events that like change your life. Mm-hmm. No, it's not always like that, I guess. I mean, because I've always had, or I've been through, different things that are at least like, no, that's, it's trauma. Like your younger self did not know what the hell to do with something like that's crazy, so, and that's gonna keep manifesting itself, as an adult. So
that's something I think a lot of people don't understand, because when people say, oh, I have PTSD, they automatically flash to like a war veteran or someone who's like someone who's been through something, like you said, really like crazy and singular and just out of the box. But it isn't. It's technically anything less than nurturing is what it is. Yeah. So, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. A lot of people don't understand that. They still don't. They still think that if they had, like, a semi-fucked up childhood to some degree in some way, oh, no, that's normal because everyone else has been like that. Or it's, that generation goes through that, so that makes it normal. Yeah.
I feel like our culture just completely minimizes those things, and like even like when I told you about my dad, like the whole masculine attitude that's been passed down from generation to generation, it's like our culture's done a fucking horrible job at that too, to where like you need, even if as a woman, like they tell women that they have to man the fuck up and just like handle it, like no matter what it is. Like you don't really, I mean I feel like we're moving the needle a little bit nowadays, but I mean, like doing what you're doing obviously is like helping tremendously, like to raise more awareness about it. But I mean, I feel like we're definitely nowhere where we need to be as a culture, especially in the U.S., because we work way too much. We stress ourselves out way too much about shit that doesn't even matter, in the long run. So it's depressing, but I feel like there's light at the end of the tunnel a little bit.
I mean, I hope so, because you're right. Like we stress, our society stresses themselves out over things that shouldn't matter, but then they completely disregard the things that should. I get frustrated, like I see TikToks about how people handle breakups, TikTok. And I'm fucking... Of course you bring up TikTok. Well, TikTok, I get stuck, okay? It's like hours. Oh my God.
It's not the best use of your time.
No, it really isn't. I should be reading.
Should be doing shit.
No, I do so much. I can't do anymore. I see a lot of TikToks about how people handle breakups. And most of them are man the fuck up, or for women, like boss up and get your shit together. They don't stop and go, no, you had someone like a part of your life for a really long time and you're not with them anymore, and that sucks. Like you should grieve that, hey, you don't have that relationship anymore. You don't have that future that you had planned is gone. And people don't do that. Instead, they either just jump to like dating someone else right away, or they throw themselves into something really toxic, and then it's just like a whole different spiral. And I get frustrated with that, because I'm like, no, breakups are a thing that should be a big deal for you to like deal with your emotions, so that way you're healthy enough to be with someone. Otherwise, like, what?
No kidding. I mean what you just described is pretty much every person that is walking this earth right now.
Yeah, I know. I'm so frustrated.
But I mean, it's just the culture. I mean, I hate to keep saying that word, but it's just to do about that. I mean, what can you actively do? I mean, you can't tell your friends to just, like hey bitch, sit there. Hey bitch, sit there, cry and cry and cry, and then journal. And then journal some more. Here's a whole list of things that you need to do before you ever talk to another female or male again. Basically,
I put myself through, I told you, I put myself through that. I was like, no, I'm not doing anything. Just because I had
Put
to.
yourself through what?
Just being alone. Literally just being alone. Not dating anyone until I have my shit sorted. Like,
Right.
romantic. Until I'm, like, completely over whoever I had just been with. Otherwise, that, like, same baggage is going to come the next time.
Well, yeah, and it's only logical, but I mean, we're not the most logical beings
No.
at times, obviously. So
Things happen.
I mean, getting out of we were almost together for 5 years, and I didn't even realize how long. I mean, for the person that I was when I met her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how old was I? I was 22.
Jesus, yeah, that's like young.
That's young. That's a year removed from me being able to have like a drink somewhere, which is crazy. But so when I met her, obviously I was a really different person, and by the time that we had some great fucking times throughout that whole timeline, and I had never been treated better by another person ever.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally zero bad to say about her or our relationship. It's just like such like a blessing. It's such a good thing for me and her to experience together, and that's so rare.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so like taboo. Like whenever my friends or like even like family like would like ask me how we were doing, like if she wasn't around or whatever, or like they'd kind of like hint at like, well, what's going on, like or like they're kind of like almost like wanting like some like the dish on like what's going on, like if there was some shit going on, something hit the fan. And I'm like, no, like we're good, like we really never argue about anything. If we ever disagree at all, like we're able to communicate about it and we're good. Like it's almost becomes like a joke, like you know what I mean, like in a healthy way. Because I was really trying to be in tune with those types of things like throughout this whole time we were together. So it was really healthy. And like even though they say too, like you kind of break up over time, like even if it was good or bad, like you break up like over the course of the last 6 months or the year, you start breaking up for a while. So I feel like that was pretty much us. Like I had this thing in the back of my head for whatever reason. I don't know why yet, but it was just kind of telling me, like I just knew that it just kind of wasn't the right time, or maybe it wasn't, maybe we just weren't right for each other. Even though like there was nothing inherently bad about us being together still. So that almost made it even harder, because I was everyone is so used to like some shit going down, you're like fuck off, like you're done with each other. So it makes it easier so it's like for the finality of it all to just walk away. And then but this time it was like we didn't have that. So like we had like these series of very long conversations about how we were feeling about each other and about how we want to handle this going forward. And it's been months now, but we're still on such good terms. Like we check in on each other every now and then, and it's been such a refreshing way to be able to walk away from something that meant so much to you. And it's just, that's what I would hope for a lot more of the people that I care about and people that I don't even know, because it's such a better way. You can't for you to burn that bridge with someone you spent so much time with is just so like crazy to me. You know what I mean? So yeah, I just thought that was a little good little tidbit.
No, I think that's beautiful though, because not a lot of people have that, or have the, like you said, or have the opportunity to do that. But it must be harder to move on from and let go of, considering like it's not something crazy that happened.
Well, yeah, it was me that kind of made us nudge each other in that direction, because I was like, I can't, that's not fair to myself or her to if I was feeling like that it wasn't right anymore to continue, because obviously I wouldn't have been totally forthcoming with her. But it hurt a lot. It hurt me too, but we both appreciate, she could, at the very end she's like, yeah, I do feel kind of the same way now, like I feel something's a little bit different, and I feel like we're doing the right thing, even though it fucking hurts really bad. So I feel like it was a little bit easier for me though, just to answer your question, just because like I was the one that obviously made it happen, because I couldn't like take that anymore. But But yeah, nonetheless, it's just going to take, just like you said, that time to heal and recoup,
Yeah,
So.
especially if you're with someone for that long, I don't know, like I think I told you about mine. Similar, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't with him for as long. It was 2.5 years.
Still a good amount of time.
Yeah, and I mean, we were like planning to get married. We were basically moved in with each other. Like, promise ring, that happened.
You did mention that.
That was
little fork in the road there.
It's just a thing. But it was actually very sweet because what he did was, when I was really little, there was this boy I had a crush on, and for me, telling a guy that I liked him was giving him something. And so I was like maybe in kindergarten, and my parents gave me like this ring. And so for me to tell him that I liked him, I gave him the ring. Well, this guy took it and gave it to some other girl, and I was like devastated.
Oh my God.
And I told my ex that, and that's why he was like,
okay.
It was really sweet.
Well, now that there's some context to it, we understand that a little bit more.
That was why. So
okay. That's really, actually really meaningful.
He's a great guy, but same thing. It was difficult for me to go, oh no, we're not meant for each other. Our visions of the future were very different. He didn't like being in LA. He hated it. He's just not that type of person. He's from Kansas originally, so just wasn't his scene.
So your goals and your everything was not aligned anymore. Okay.
No, it was at some point, and then it just really took.
Well, I mean, like you said, I said, I mean, you start out at this age, and you can't help but keep progressing your own, like on your own. So as long as you're staying like this, it's like all good. But if you keep
I feel like people, when they say like, oh, you should be single for a long time, there's like a misconnotation of, oh, you should like date a bunch of people and fuck around, and that's not what it should be. It should be like rediscovering yourself, getting more in touch with yourself, growing, bettering yourself.
Well, how many people are very comfortable being alone?
I know.
That's the problem.
Isn't that scary though? I don't know.
I mean, it's only been easy for me. It's a cop out because it's like I love being alone. That's why I live by myself. But it's like not many people like that for some reason. I mean, I like obviously hanging out with people, and I get some energy from that, but I get a lot more from recouping by myself, and I am my own best friend. Like I can have a fucking ball by myself, So I want that for other people.
Yeah.
Like I would love a lot of my friends that are not like that to be able to handle something like that, and to be able to and then become a complete person and give their completeness to this other person once they find them. You know what I mean? I mean, that should be the goal, right?
What would you say to someone if like they're very uncomfortable being alone? What's something that you've done that's helped you? I
mean, what I enjoy doing by myself, I mean, if that's what you're asking, I mean, I do dumb shit. I'm super into, like, if I can't make it to the sauna, then I'll take a really hot bath.
Is that where the hell you were the other day?
Yes. I was in the sauna.
I was like, where? You didn't answer my question. I was like, where are you?
They usually don't make it. They usually don't make it that zen. So I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I need to I wish I knew how to meditate, well, or something like that, because it was like the perfect environment. But yeah, I go there a lot. It's amazing. I love that place. But anyways, so yeah, if I can't make it there, then I take a hot bath so I can sweat, because there's a lot of benefits to sweating. Anyways, there are different ways to sweat. Newsflash.
Just thought I'd let
Get
you
out
know.
and fucking sweat. But yeah, so I mean, I work a lot too. So I mean, I enjoy. I mean, as far as like my business goes, at least, like I enjoy that work. It doesn't feel like work. So I'll do that. I mean, just finding. I mean, I feel like the underlying theme is to find something that you're passionate about. Have different outlets, like you mentioned, like hobbies that you can. I mean, it sounds very basic, and everyone's probably heard that before, but until you actually do it, you don't know.
No, otherwise your mind just sits there and it gives it room to go where it shouldn't sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, there's value in that too. I feel like, I mean, journaling is a huge thing. Another thing that people always talk about, but no one really seems to do it.
Have you done journaling?
Yeah, I mean, I don't make myself do it every day because sometimes I don't fucking feel like it. Because it's, it's not the easiest thing to do after a long day or whatever the case to well, let's fucking write how I'm feeling.
Today,
or you feel like you're like writing in a diary or some shit. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of that, but yeah, I mean, there is value in doing that sometimes if you've, had, something happen where you kind of had a realization or whatever the case, it's good to write it down. But just building good habits, like there's a lot of value in having a good routine and making sure that you're taking care of yourself, because not a lot of, that's an afterthought in the US again. I mean, we don't get enough sleep. We don't take time to make sure that we're good. Much less, in a relationship, nobody fucking does that. That's why the divorce rate's so high. And all that to say, I don't want to end up like the bad parts, or I don't want to make the same mistakes as my parents did.
Same.
That's the end goal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I've never talked to another person that has to journal or has journaled, so this is new to me.
Really?
I swear.
Really?
Most people I say, well, hey, have you tried journaling?
I feel like people say they might have or they might try it. They never fucking do.
No, and it's weird. I did try to do it every day, but when I had COVID, because I was like, fuck, I have nothing to do. I have no one to talk to. So I was like, talk to myself. And then just said whatever I wanted to say. But I did, now I'm doing the same thing you're doing. I'm like, I don't have to today. I don't really feel the need. But sometimes through it, I'll figure stuff out. And I don't know if that's just because I don't know, the writing's like...
Yeah, something about manually writing things down has a profound effect at times.
Yeah.
Not that obviously you're going to have some huge realization every time you do it, but yeah, I don't know what it is. Writing something in my phone is way different for some reason. It's not the same. So, and that was a huge thing. Going back to I don't have to do it every day. There's things that I thought, or I feel like it was a form of control because I didn't feel like I was in control when I was a kid. So it kind of formed this perfectionist attitude and routine that I felt like I had to have, and it gave me some sort of control because situations were so volatile at times back then. But you don't need to do these things every day. You can just go with the flow and make sure that it's important. I feel like it is important to listen to yourself when you feel pressed to lean into a certain thought or something that you're feeling. And therapy can help with that a lot too, but even by yourself,
So if you were to give any advice or any input to anyone listening who resonated with what you've been through, what you were talking about, what would you say to them? Just
being yourself. I feel like we're trying to be a lot of us that are just, we're on a rock and we don't know what this is. Life is weird, man. So it's just give yourself a break and realize that, just you being alive and breathing is just crazy in and of itself. That's something to be thankful for. If you grew up, in the United States, even more so, you're even more lucky. So just keeping the right perspective and not trying to be something or somebody else that you're not. If there's literally, everyone again has heard this before, but there's only one of you, and if you're not serving the world showing up as somebody else, you can only serve the world being you. So if you're not doing that, there's definitely different ways that you can start trying to realign yourself with who you really are, and just start showing up as the best version of yourself every single day. That's all you can do.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. we just started the business, but I did hire a few new people on, so we do have a little bit of a team now. So it's biohack-nutrition.com. If you're interested in any health-related issues or things that you can do to improve yourself, that's where you can find us.
Thank you so much for listening, and remember, you have to go through the eye of the storm to see the clear horizon ahead. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you next week.